Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mother Kwasab. It was a really great learning for me. In fact, I learned so much from these sessions, from farmers and from earlier sessions. LIMS is a beautiful tool that I'm going to use very soon. In fact, there was a great tool. So what I'll do, in fact, in this session, I'm a little bit, if you like, a little bit misfit in this community. I'm basically belong to oil and gas sector. So जितनी आपको CO2 नज़र आ रही है, कार्बन, सारी environmental pollution है, climate change है, उसके culprit हम लोग हैं, oil and gas. So I'm really the kind of bad boy in this room, if you like. So let me see. In fact, what I'll do is we are very much concerned. Oil industry is very much concerned about climate change because we are the creator of this climate mess, if you like. So we have been thinking long. It is basically the matter of survival for us. We cannot shut down all the oil companies, so we have to find a solution, right? So I'll try to basically, during this short 5-10 minutes, I'll try to brief you what is climate change, what are net zero goals, where the world is going, and how important it is. And I hope for students, that will be kind of an eye-opener that this climate change is such a big issue. And if there is an issue, a challenge, that's also an opportunity. All right, so that probably can help some of you guys to basically slightly adjust your future goals. All right, so this is, next slide please. Now, let me very briefly tell you that what oil and gas does. And of course, from this cycle, what you see is that from different plants, they absorb all that CO2 goes down, that converts into carbon, and that carbon is stored in oil, gas, and coal that we call fossil fuels. That's a natural process. It has been happening. Please go back to the previous slide. No, first slide, please. First slide. Oh, okay. But the thing is that this has been happening over millions of years. This carbon matter was deposited something like 200 million years ago, even before, even earlier. So that process has been happening for a long time. But what has happened now, in fact, that carbon is taken out in the form of coal, oil, and gas, and it is now burned into industry and cars and everything, and that somehow has happened over last 30 or 40 or 100 years. So what nature has done, stored that carbon over millions of years. We have tried to remove that in just over a span of 50 years. And what it has done to the nature, next slide please. Now over here on the left slide, you see that, no please, yeah. On the left slide, you see that different countries, how much carbon they are producing, how much CO2 they are producing actually in the environment. And if you look at the lower part, which is yellow, this is US, above that is Europe. These countries and all the other, we call them OECD countries, developed countries, there the carbon CO2 footprint is going down. Whereas if you go up in China and India, the amount of carbon is increasing a lot. All right, and that is still an increasing trend. Now, that industrialization process that started from 1950s till now, it has done to the temperature of the global temperature that is on the right side, that is really alarming. Our temperature has gone up from here all the way up there. So if this temperature keeps on increasing, it is going to create huge problem for the world. So it's unimaginable problem. So you really will not be living in the same world that you are living today. All the glaciers that you have seen earlier, if the temperature keeps on rising, all they will melt. So our survival of our generation depends on this thing, that we have to control this rise of temperature. So the world, everybody was concerned, the whole countries and the United States, everybody was concerned. So they created this climate change and climate goals and all that. This is the basis of all this ESG goals and everything. Because of that, there were a couple of COP conferences you might have heard about, and they all agreed that if we don't control the rise of temperature within 1.5 degrees centigrade by the end of this century, if the temperature increases behind 1.5 degrees centigrade, we are going to have an uncontrollable problem. A problem that we cannot control. So we have to limit this rise of temperature below 1.5 degrees. This is called basically goals, net zero goals. To make it happen, it is very difficult because you have seen the temperature is rising like that. Next slide, please. Oil demand is increasing continuously. There is no stopping on that. Today we are producing about 90 million barrels per day. Oil price is going up. Today, by the way, oil price went down last night. Next slide, please. Okay. So these are our goals that we have to limit. These are on the vertical scale. You see this CO2 emissions in millions of tons. And if our trend continues like that, that is the top yellow line. And if we want to bring that down to net zero, those are little triangles down there. So to bring that from there to here is a huge challenge. And trust me that our survival depends on controlling this. This is not a small thing, this is a big thing. And whole world is concerned about that. They are spending not billions but trillions of dollars to fight that problem. And the problem is that it is not problem of Pakistan, but it is the problem of all the countries of the universe. We share the same atmosphere. All right? So to do what, it is not America's problem, it is everybody's problem. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. Now, our problem is really we have to bring our carbon emission from here down to zero. That's a huge challenge. That is a huge challenge. All right? Let's see how we can meet that challenge. Next, please. And how our trees can contribute in that. Next, please. All right, okay. Now, there are many challenges, and I'm not going to go into details of this thing, but the problem is that in order to develop our country, we have to increase industrializations, we have to use cars, we have to create jobs, and all these things, what it will do is, it will increase our CO2 emissions. We cannot shut down all the industry. That's not possible. So what should we do? Next, please. So this is the carbon footprint of the forest map, Google map. What it's showing is these green areas are the one which are sequestering or storing carbon CO2, and the white areas are the ones which are not storing any CO2. They are emitting more CO2 than they are absorbing in their forests. All right, and these are different trees, by the way, or different type of trees. How much a tree can absorb CO2. A tree, absorbs CO2 above ground and below ground. Below ground is shown here in that dark color, and what a tree absorbs CO2 in its biomass is shown in above color, light green color. And the middle one is the one that is eucalyptus. Eucalyptus we think is a bad tree. Everybody dislikes eucalyptus. But the problem is that if we ban something just kind of outrightly, that this is bad, we don't do this thing, this is probably not the right thing. We have to do selective. We don't basically, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Now, this is eucalyptus. Now, this is above ground and this is below ground biomass of any tree that can store CO2. Now, there are many areas where there's plenty of water, excess of water. There you should plant eucalyptus. Why not? And this is a very good tree for storing CO2. Next, please. All right. Now, let's see, in fact, where do we stand in terms of trees to make net zero? Net zero means that the total CO2 emissions that we are creating and how much CO2 we are absorbing in different forms. In trees, for example, especially. I'm showing here two examples. US, this is the footprint of every person. In Pakistan, nearly one person creates 1 ton of carbon CO2 footprint. All right, so that's really really important. Considering we have 230 million people, our carbon footprint for the country is about 200 million tons. All right, so I hope that's kind of new information. Now, how many number of trees do we have? 1.4 billion trees that we have today, according to Google database. And number of trees in US are 228 billion trees. Their goal is to make net zero. Their US should have 330 billion trees. we should have to become net zero. Our goal is to become 14 billion trees. Why is net zero important? Because as I said, this climate change is everybody's problem. And it is very soon going to be imposed by all the world, the United Nations, climate change. All right? We will not have any option. If the countries who do not make net zero, they will be penalized. Of course, there is some relaxation. For example, India has pledged that they will become net zero by 2070. Many countries in Europe and US, they are planning to become net zero by 2050. We still have not made any plans, but we have to become net zero. There is no other option, absolutely no other option. Sorry? We can talk endlessly for that. The thing is that hydrocarbon is not only used for energy, that's one thing. Transportation is the other thing. And then if you look at in this room, probably you'll see many things, all these things made of petrochemicals. You cannot get rid of oil and gas. This sofa that chair you are sitting on is made of petrochemicals. So petrochemicals is all around us. We have to live with that. So probably better solution is let's produce hydrocarbon, but at the same time grow trees to take care of excess CO2 that we are generating. We have to, of course, we have many other solutions, as you said, rightly said, but hydro energy and everything. But at the same time, they say there are 100 different ways to skin a cat. So there are many different options. So one of the options is to grow trees, and that's the best option because that will allow us to keep growing at the same time taking care of our CO2. Next, please. Next slide, sir.
Next, please.
Next, please. Hello. All right, next one. Let's skip this one, please. Next slide. All right. Now, our business investment opportunities, how this problem can be an opportunity for us. All right. So, climate change disruption and opportunities. We can do ESG investing. All right. The multi-billion carbon credit ecosystem. So what we need to do is to find a system or create a system where all our trees that we are growing trees, rather than burning, that will take care of your problem of cutting those trees. If a standing tree can generate revenue through carbon credits, you don't have to cut down that tree. Think in this direction. Now that will create an additional incentive for people to grow trees. At the same time, we are doing good for the climate change. That will help Pakistan to become net zero very soon. That will generate additional revenue from the trees that you have. What is missing link in that is that we don't have a certification authority or an entity that can certify and qualify that, yes, you have created so many carbon credits. And I'll be happy to work with students or anybody. In fact, earlier we were discussing about students and giving them some jobs and everything. I think students should become entrepreneurs. And students what they should do is, in the farmers like we have sitting here, expert people and myself, please, you are more than welcome to just walk into our farm, to my farm, to anybody's farm, and help us add some new ideas. We are working with old farmers, traditional people. We want to bring in new ideas. So the problem in our academia really is that the people, when they walk out of university, they have a lot of bookish knowledge, but they don't have any practical knowledge. You really need to address this problem, and the university needs to address that problem. And the only way is to create a link between industry and academia. And the best way is for the students to go out of their books, spend some time with farming. Don't worry, in fact, the problem is that once we become engineers or scientists, we think that just making our hand dirty is really bad. It's not bad. That's the way to learn. Next, please. All right. This is the carbon footprint of Pakistan, the way it is growing, and we have to really arrest that. Next, please. Okay, this is the carbon footprint of all different countries. I've just selected few countries. United States, you see United States carbon footprint is actually going down. All right, because of electrification, their new CVDs, controls, they are very much concerned about that. At the same time, what those countries have done is, they have done all the development. You see, over these years, they have created a lot of CO2. They have done all the development. All right, so the number of cars per person have become almost steady. We are still growing countries. We cannot stop this development. We will keep on developing. More people will be driving cars. We will add to this carbon footprint, and that is going to keep on growing. And we have to find a way or how we can keep growing at the same time we can keep on controlling our CO2 emission. Next, please. Okay, this is a little bit about my farm. What I have is, I have plenty of water. There is a large dam upstream of my land. There was one little, you see, you call it kassi, and I've converted into a canal. All right, and on the two sides of these canals, I planted almost on this area and all other areas where I couldn't really utilize that area for any crops. I have planted about 150, mostly eucalyptus and shisham trees. And I have done a very simple economics, that how much these trees will do, how much carbon I will store. Basically, 28 pounds of carbon one tree basically stores every year. 28 pounds. So which basically turns out all the trees, total 150,000 trees, 150 lakh, they will store about 119 million ton per year. Very simple equation. If you convert this 1900 million tons into dollars, next please. The price of this carbon credits is different in different places. It's growing in, for example, this is in EU, and this is the carbon credit price in other different countries. If we take an average of $30 or $40 per ton of CO2, that really makes a lot of money. All right, so that's roughly about nearly $50,000 to $60,000 per year. I don't have to cut down the trees. I can simply generate revenue from carbon credits. And that is probably something to think about for all the farmers. But what we need from government is, probably somebody is here from government, to facilitate this thing, to create a certification process where I can certify that, yes, I'm generating these carbon credits. And then I can take those carbon credits and go to market and sell it to those industries. I'll be happy to discuss this thing further with anybody if they like. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.